Hello, I'm Declan Harvey. Welcome to BBC Newsline. The main stories from across Northern Ireland this evening. And the remains of the victims of a triple murder in County Fermanagh are taken to County Clare for burial.
In Maguiresbridge today, people came in bright and cheerful clothing in memory of Vanessa White and her children James and Sarah, and to say a final goodbye.
At that removal service in the village, mourners were told the 3 lives had been taken in an unspeakable way.
The tragedy we have endured has shaken this community and country to its core.
The Linfield chairman says some fans are damaging the football club's reputation.
We've tried to make progress, we've tried to promote positive behaviours within the stadium, and to an extent that has worked. But it does seem to be when big games come around, there's still this small element who seem determined to damage the reputation of the club.
The brother of this man missing from East Belfast has flown to Paris today to step up the search for him. Also coming up this evening, have a listen to this. We meet some of the 900 or so musicians giving Belfast a blast of trad en masse.
In sport, a setback for Olympic champion Daniel Whiffen. The 24-year-old struggles in Singapore, finishing 8th in the defence of his world title.
And once again, it's felt quite warm and muggy in a number of places. We can expect another warm night tonight, but the next day or two should feel a little fresher. I'll have more just before 7.
These were the heartbreaking scenes in Maguiresbridge this morning as 3 coffins were brought to a small country church for a service allowing the local community to say goodbye. The coffin of Vanessa White was dressed with white flowers. The coffins of her 2 teenage children had coloured flowers. All 3 were murdered last week, it's believed, by their father, Vanessa's husband, Ian Rutledge. He has also since died. The circumstances of how Vanessa, young James and Sarah died were described today as unspeakable and more than any heart should bear. And following the removal service in Maguiresbridge, their coffins began the journey south to Vanessa's native County Clare, where their funerals will be held on Saturday. Elaine Mitchell reports.
The village came to a standstill today for Vanessa, James and Sarah. A sea of football shirts reflected their love of the GAA and every colour of the rainbow as the mourners chose to celebrate the lives of Vanessa, James and Sarah, which were so cruelly taken. Vanessa and her children were inseparable in life, and today they started their final journey together.
There is a heaviness in the air, a silence within our hearts that speaks volumes. The tragedy we have endured has shaken this community and country to its core. The loss of Vanessa and her 2 beautiful children, James and Sarah, lives taken in such an unspeakable way, is more than any heart should bear. A woman full of kindness and warmth, a friend to so many, and her children so young, so vibrant, so full of promise.
Guards of honour lined the streets. St Patrick's Hurling Club from Lisbon and Maguiresbridge Football Club out in team colours to say goodbye to their active and loved club members. A heartbroken family too, who'll be trying to pick up the pieces of their lives after this shocking loss.
None of us have the words to explain the dreadfulness of what happened, but we stand together with the families. Absolutely. And both families, both sides of this community came together in a strong way to show their solidarity with these sorrowing and grieving families today.
There's no words to describe really what has happened here today. But the thing that we have together is that the community here is very strong, and they have come together to show the love of God to the families that have been bereaved.
Vanessa, James and Sarah have now left Maguiresbridge, but their legacy here will continue. And they're together now as they make their way to County Clare, where they'll be laid to rest together. Elaine Mitchell, BBC Newsline, Maguiresbridge.
Well, in the latest episode of the State of Us podcast, Tara and I look back at the events in Maguiresbridge and how this rural community is once again dealing with a tragedy of this kind. We also explore how the media reporting of these kinds of cases has changed following concerns in the past. The State of Us podcast is available now on BBC Sounds or anywhere you get your podcasts. We move on because the chairman of Linfield Football Club has told the BBC he's embarrassed by the behaviour of a small section of fans. Roy McGivern has revealed the club has lost sponsorship deals because of headlines over sectarian chanting. Last week, UEFA fined the club €12,000, the equivalent of around £10,000, because of supporters' behaviour. Richard Morgan has the story.
Linfield would want us to be talking about the action on the pitch, but it's what's happening off the pitch that's making the news. The club has faced multiple fines and sanctions because of the behaviour of some fans.
We've spent long hours discussing this issue over the past number of years. We've met with the PSNI, we've met with supporters groups, we've met with local community representatives, and in all of that we've tried to make progress. We've tried to promote positive behaviours within the stadium, and to an extent that has worked. But it does seem to be when big games come around, there's still this small element who seem determined to damage the reputation of the club.
Are you embarrassed when you're at a game and you hear this singing, you hear these chants, you see a UVF flag displayed in the stands?
It certainly can be embarrassing. It doesn't befit the proud name of our club. We don't hide where we're from, we don't hide our background in terms of where the club was established in Sandy Row, but now we're a very diverse club at all levels, so it can be embarrassing when you're sitting with sponsors, indeed sitting with players who are from a different background.
And it's now clear these fines are impacting the club's finances.
We have very loyal sponsors at the club, but one of the big frustrations over recent years is trying to attract new sponsors to the club, and you can get so far down the line with a new sponsor and suddenly you get a negative headline about sectarian fines or sectarian behaviour which results in fines, and that can actually halt sponsorship deals, which has happened to us in the past.
So the behaviour of a small number of fans, as you say, has cost Linfield Football Club sponsorship deals? It
has undoubtedly in recent seasons, and that has been a great frustration to everyone at the club, that some of those sponsorship deals we haven't been able to get over the line because people see negative headlines which they don't want to be associated with as a company or as a business. Domestically, over the last number of seasons, we've faced a number of fines, and also probably just as important, we've faced partial stadium closure, which cuts off a revenue stream for the club if you can't open certain parts of the ground. We're currently under a 2-year suspended sentence from UEFA. If there are any further actions of this nature, then they will close part of the stadium for European games. Now, that could have awful consequences for the club financially if we can't sell tickets for certain parts of the grounds. The police have a very big role in this because obviously they're at all of our games, and they have a role. I mean, if people are engaged in behaviour which is criminal, then we need people to be prosecuted for that. Let's be very clear, both for European games and domestic games, this will not be tolerated any further. And Linfield, if we keep getting punishment like this, we may have to close parts of the ground ourselves.
Roy McGivern speaking to Richard Morgan. Now, as police continue to study footage of the disorder at the Derry City Bohemians game at the weekend, the Candy Stripes manager Tiernan Lynch has told this programme he condemns all violence. 2 people had to be treated in hospital after the disturbances by rival factions. The PSNI believe that all this was pre-arranged. Here's our North West reporter Kieran Turish.
These are the images that have shocked many, discharging fireworks through a fence at the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium as people, including young children, were leaving last Friday night.
You're all right, you're all right, you're all right. You're all right.
A teenage boy and a man in his 20s were treated in hospital after 2 groups attacked each other with sticks, bats and iron bars. Cars were also damaged outside the stadium. Both Bohemians and Derry City expressed great regret at the disturbances and said those involved had no interest in supporting either team. And would you condemn the violence from wherever it comes?
I would condemn any type of violence if you're asking me personally. So that's. But as I say, I'm not going to stand and try and talk about rights, wrongs, and difference. My things, as I say, preparing for Shamrock Rovers.
The disorder was discussed between senior PSNI officers and councillors at their regular liaison meeting.
What we need to be doing now, obviously, is to work to reassure those who are attending football games and those who live in the neighbourhood that they're going to be safe and that we will work to ensure that they're safe.
While the FAI investigation continues, the PSNI are studying footage from the weekend in an attempt to identify those involved in the disorder, which they believe was pre-arranged. Detectives have appealed to anyone with information to get in touch. Kieran Turris, BBC Newsline, Derry.
The brother of a man from East Belfast who has been missing for nearly 2 weeks has flown to Paris today to step up the search for him. This is Robert Kincaid. He is 38 and he hasn't been seen or heard from since the 17th of July. What we do know is that he had been working in Benin in West Africa. He took a flight to Paris, about 2,500 miles north, planning to get a connection on to Dublin. But he didn't get that second flight, and a strange final call to his mobile phone in France has left his family deeply worried. Catherine Morrison has more.
Robert Kincaid spoke to a friend from an airport bar in Paris 13 days ago. Since then, nothing. His family are desperately worried. They say this is very unusual for him.
Totally out of character. If he's not speaking to me, he'll be speaking to his mother. And if he's not speaking to his mother, he's on the phone to his friends all the time, on WhatsApp, whatever. So he is, but the whole thing has just went quiet.
Robert had been working on an oil rig in Benin in West Africa. He flew to Paris to catch an onward flight to Dublin, but he missed it. A call to his phone later that evening was answered by a Frenchman.
That night, at 10:30, one of his friends rang him, and there was a French guy answered the phone speaking French, and his mate says, "Where's Rob? Where's Rob?" And he kept on saying, we, and then put the phone down.
His family reported his disappearance to the PSNI, to the authorities in France, and they're in close contact with the British Embassy. But they say it's been difficult getting help.
My wife phoned the airport up. They asked them would they check the cameras, and they says no, they're not allowed for data protection. Now this could have been sorted out in 5 minutes. What time, where he left the airport, did he get into a taxi? Did he leave with a girl? Did he leave to go to another pub? What direction did he go? Still can't get the cameras. Can't get his phone. The police have his phone number, his bank details, and we're still waiting now.
Robert's brother Louis and a friend have arrived in the French capital today, bringing posters and T-shirts with Robert's image on them to try and jog people's memories. They're meeting embassy officials and the French police, hoping for a breakthrough in the search for this missing son, brother and friend. Catherine Morrison, BBC Newsline.
People whose homes lose electricity during extreme weather could become legally entitled to compensation under plans by the executive. We are currently the only part of the UK where that kind of scheme doesn't exist, much to the frustration, for example, of those who didn't get a penny despite some having no power for days, thanks to Storm Éowyn earlier this year. Well, let's speak to our economics editor, John Campbell, who is here. Just remind us of what happened at the beginning of this year.
Well, people who lost power for an extended period after Storm Éowyn were given the very strong impression by executive ministers that they would get some sort of compensation payment. There was a lot of talk about a goodwill payment. In the end, nobody got a penny. The main reason for that is that we do not have a scheme which would allow NIE to pay out. So ministers were effectively reduced to asking NIE to make payments out of the goodness of their heart, and the company, as they were quite entitled to, refused to do that. So nobody got anything.
So what's been suggested now?
It would be something similar to the scheme in the rest of the UK, where compensation payments would have to be shared across all NIE's customers. So we're potentially talking something like £70 for the first 12 hours you'd be off, £70 for every subsequent 12-hour period, up to a maximum of £700. It is by no means certain this will happen because the Economy Minister was making very clear today this would have a cost to all customers. It could also be administratively burdensome to set this up. So the work is now being done by the utility regulator. They will run the consultation and the executive will make a decision probably sometime in March or April. But this is one which is really in the balance about whether or not it would be fair to all customers to introduce a scheme like this. So by no means certain that this is going to happen. All right. I mean, the storm season seems a long way away right now, but it'll come round soon enough again. Thank you very much, John Campbell, for that. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, Pat Cullen shocked the world of politics when she announced she would stand as a Sinn Féin candidate in last year's general election in Fermanagh and South Tyrone. She went on to win by more than 4,000 votes. Now, in her first major interview since then, she's been speaking to Mark Carruthers for this week's Red Lines podcast.
Pat Cullen grew up in Carrickmore in Tyrone during the Troubles. She says the army would regularly search locals as they went about their business.
I remember one day in particular, a young soldier, it was about the 5th time he had stopped me that week, and I remember saying to him, "Why are you doing this?" And he said to me, I was only, 17 and a half at the time, just had got my driving test. I remember saying to him, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this to me?" And he said, "I have no choice." And I remember standing looking at him, and he wasn't, I'm sure, much older than me. I remember saying to him, "We all have choices."
But
I never felt like a second-class citizen. Absolutely not. I always knew that we were on the right side of history. And I don't know why I always felt that, but I always knew in myself I was very secure with who I was.
In her previous role as General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen led the first ever nurses' strike here and in England. The local one came as the then Secretary of State, Julian Smith, was attempting to restore power sharing at Stormont.
I remember saying to him one morning over in Hillsborough Castle when he asked me to come over and meet with him early in the morning. And it was, obviously it was, I had called strike action here in the north at the time. I remember at the end of that meeting saying to him, as long as you know that I'm using you as much as you're using me, we're okay.
Well, you can hear more of what Pat Cullen had to say in her first interview since the election with Mark Carruthers. It's on the latest episode of the Red Lines podcast, available now on BBC Sounds. Well, almost 1,000 traditional musicians came together in Belfast today to play what must be one of the biggest gigs ever seen or heard, for that matter, in the city centre. Our arts correspondent, Robbie Meredith, went along to have a listen.
Getting ready for the biggest gig in many of their lives.
I literally love music, like I never stop playing. I'm going to the All-Ireland Sla in Wexford next week and I can't wait for that. I haven't stopped playing tunes all summer. I love it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Around 900 musicians, young and older, from the Belfast TradFest Summer School came together in the city centre to play a traditional tune called the Blarney Pilgrim, and they made quite a sound. Leaving many of those who took part buzzing.
It was like amazing because like everyone has we all have one bonding together and this is our culture and this is our music. It was very fun and exciting. It was the Blarney Pilgrim and it was a 3-piece song. I've played it before, but we played a different key in this one. When there's so many people, if you mess up it doesn't really matter and you just get to play and it's really fun.
Some had even travelled across the Atlantic to take part.
It was awesome. It was awesome. People were friendly and music just brings everybody together all the time.
I've never played with that many people and I think it was amazing.
And even the organisers seemed amazed they'd pulled it off.
We now have over 900 students signed up for a week-long programme and to see them all coming together, playing a tune together, dancing together, singing together and to get a full picture of that we thought might be a nice idea.
And the question many were left asking was, when can we do it again? Robbie Meredith, BBC Newsline.
Now, last week, thousands of young footballers battled it out in the Foyle Cup. Now it is time for the Super Cup. The tournament is also renowned for showcasing young footballing talent and is bringing together junior players from some of the world's top clubs. Our North East reporter Maria McCann joins us from Dixon Park in Ballyclare, where Northern Ireland's girls team is playing Manchester United tonight. Lots of excitement there, Maria. Hello.
Hello Declan, yes indeed. The Super Cup has been going for more than 40 years, or the Milk Cup as it was known before, and it's showcased some of the world's most famous footballers in their youth. But an interesting fact for you is that this is only the 4th year there's been a girls only tournament. Now, no doubt the sport for girls has been growing in popularity over recent years, and we've been hearing today that that's helped by the Super Cup but also the Euros. Now, I'm joined by Claire McElwain, who's a coach with Crusaders Strikers. Claire, what's your assessment of the girls' game today?
Oh, they're fantastic. It's the participation and the numbers increasing year after year, more recently week after week. You've seen the last 4 years, from last year to this year, it's the crowds, the teams that are wanting to enter. It's just fantastic.
And Claire, how do you think that it is helped by events like the Super Cup, but also the Euros, and of course the Lionesses win there at the weekend?
No, can't see, won't see. You know, it's just how kids can see this on TV. It's what they want to be. They believe in it, and then they can get on it and get on the game.
And what has it been like for you over the last few days and for the Crusaders Strikers?
Oh, we've had a fantastic time. I've got 18 girls with me, and they've just created so many memories off the pitch as well as on the pitch, facing tough elite teams and aspiring to be. That's where they want to be. And
are you excited for tonight? We can see the warm-ups are well underway and the crowds are starting to pour into the stand here in Ballyclare.
Big game tonight. These faced each other in the final last year, so tonight's the decider. Who's the best?
OK, thank you very much, Claire. Just before we came on air, I spoke with the Mayor of Antrim and Newton Abbey Borough Council, who said beyond the pitch, hosting the Super Cup here has so many economic benefits for this borough. But as you can see, the warm-up is well underway. Tonight's match is between Man United and Northern Ireland. And for anyone who wants to watch the finals, they're on tomorrow night in Dixon Park here in Ballyclare as well.
Good luck to everyone involved. Maria, thank you very much for that. Maria McCann live. Let's stay in a sporting theme. Nicola is here tonight. Let's turn to the pool. What has happened?
Yeah, difficult day for one of our Olympic champions. Declan, good evening. Everyone, the reigning Olympic and world champion Daniel Wiffen has finished 8th in the final of the men's 800 metres freestyle at the World Swimming Championships. It's exactly a year to the day since the Maguiresbridge athlete clinched gold in the same event at the Paris Olympics. The 24-year-old did get off to a fast start but faded in the closing stages in Singapore. He finished over 20 seconds behind the winner. Wiffen is back in action, hoping to defend his 1500 metres world title over the weekend. Now, the British and Irish Lions are pushing for a Test Series win in Australia this Saturday. The makeup of the squad is dominated by one club, that is Leinster. So how do Ulster compete? Well, it starts from the ground up, as Gavin Andrews reports.
This is where the future of Ulster rugby lies. Clubs like Rainey and Maguiresbridge are opening their doors to the next generation.
Rugby, I guess, and maybe in times gone by, has seen maybe a slightly more elitist sport, break down those barriers, bring the community out here, show them how fun this place can be. Historically, youth rugby and minis rugby has been reliant on mums and dads, and anyone walking past, if we could get you, you were there to coach. But unfortunately, it takes money to pay high quality coaching, and with high quality coaching, we begin to build a standard, and maybe the people that weren't involved in rugby circles like the look of, they're enticed in. That said, we're a long way behind.
Ulster Rugby's leaders are starting to take notice and change their approach.
The experience most people have, the joy that they get from rugby, tends to come from clubs like Rainey and other clubs right across Ulster. This is where our heartland is. Take an example of maybe the money we spent on one international player. We could strengthen rugby across 10, 15, 20 schools at 12 to 18. And to me, that's a much better investment in the long term.
And there's an awareness at all levels here that close neighbours Leinster are the benchmark.
Seen the Lions game recently, very Leinster dominated as well. So they're obviously ahead of a lot of teams in Europe. But I know Ulster are working hard as well. They're looking at club rugby and grants and supporting clubs, but can get to Leinster's level, they'll be doing very well.
The level of resource in Dublin is as much as maybe 10 times as great across schools and clubs. We have to start replicating that. That's where I believe if we invest in our 12 to 16-year-olds, giving them better skills, better coaching, better athletic development, that's the opportunity for us to close the gap.
It starts here, and if all goes to plan, it ends like this. Gavin Andrews, BBC Newsline.
Finally tonight, and staying with rugby, some positive news from the Ireland women's camp. After knee surgery, Aoife Wafer is expected to be fit to play a part in the World Cup, which starts in England at the end of August. That is the sport this evening. Declan.
Appreciate it, Nicola. Thank you very much. What a flush of colour up Ballycastle way today, and actually not a bad day for most of us, but muggy and warm. They used to say we'd be expecting a thunderstorm in this kind of weather, but nothing in the forecast.
No thunder, but it has been warm and muggy, and we'll probably see things freshen up a little bit in the next couple of days. I love the colour there, Declan. You know what? They're wildflowers.
That's
if I
amazing.
tried my hardest, my garden would never look like that. But yeah, they just grow on, you know, the coastal road there up in Ballycastle way. And more gorgeous flowers here from one of our weather watchers, Belfast Camino. And we have had a few showers in the last few hours. They're more or less driving away now southeastwards, but there will still be a few lingering across parts of the south and southeast for a time this evening. Many places though will have a dry evening, and then we'll have a good chunk of dry weather. Clouds will come and go through the night. Towards the end of the night we change the wind direction, which will drag a few showers into northern and western counties. It is going to be pretty warm tonight, temperatures in many places staying in the low teens. So to begin with tomorrow, there will be the risk of some showers, but the day is getting better as it goes on. So quite large amounts of cloud with some showers, not everywhere, still a fair bit of dry weather to come through the morning. Most of those showers, though, disappear by the afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon's looking largely dry, brighter and increasing amounts of sunshine as the day goes on. Slightly fresher though up towards the north coast with that onshore breeze. So 17 tomorrow, that compares with 21 in the northwest today. We'll probably see 20, maybe 21 across South Down with a bit more shelter from that breeze. And it'll stay dry tomorrow evening. Most of the night's looking pretty dry too. Tonight we're talking about the low teens for overnight temperatures. Tomorrow night with clearer skies and slightly cooler air, we could see one or two spots dip into single digits. So if you've been suffering a bit with the warm, muggy nights, it should feel a little bit cooler tomorrow night. Ridge of high pressure nudges in for Friday and Saturday, bringing a lot of dry weather. There'll be an increase in the humidity again over the weekend and some rain on Sunday morning. And then behind me here, we've an area of low pressure, which could bring quite unsettled conditions for the beginning of next week. But in the short term, Friday is going to be fairly dry across most of the island. A northwesterly breeze, but not too strong. Some sunshine, some areas of cloud, temperatures up to 19 or 20 degrees. And most of Saturday's looking dry too, but there'll be some rain on Sunday morning.
Cecilia, thank you very much. That is BBC Newsline on this Wednesday, the 30th of July. The summer's flying in. Join us again tomorrow, 6:30. But thanks for watching. Bye-bye.